Hi sir, my name
Hi.
po is Shaira Tiotuyco from
Mm,
UP Diliman Extension Program in Pampanga.
okay.
What's your name po?
I am Bonzon. Presently, I'm the building official, the acting building official of Clark Cliffordson.
Today I'm going to interview you about your job and your
Okay.
profession. So my
Mm.
first question sir is, can you give me some information about your profession? What do you do and how do you do it?
Well, as I've said, I am a civil engineer by profession. I graduated at, I'm a graduate of UST, and as a building official, there are a lot of things that must be considered being a building official, which is primarily try to follow what the provisions indicated in the National Building Code, and those are basically try to see to it that all buildings that are being constructed within the Clark Freeport zone follows the provisions of the National Building Code in terms of in order to achieve the safety of the building.
Sir, is this your first job or have you had other jobs before this, before being a building
Yeah.
official?
Uh, After graduation, I was a civil engineering aide at the DPWH at Region 3. And prior to that, I'm also a survey aide in one of the company in Manila right after graduation. And then after serving the DPWH for almost 2 years, I became a faculty member of the Holy Angel University, teaching civil engineering subjects, and then from there I became the hydraulic laboratory technician in the after 4 years or after 5 years, and then after that I became the chairperson of the Department of the Civil Engineering. After that, I ventured by going abroad in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah particularly, and I spent there more or less 2 years. And then after returning, I went back to Holy Angel. Then after that, I am now at the CDC.
Oh, that's a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been here at Clark
I've been
Development?
here since 2008, so more or less that will be 5 years.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, in those 5 years here at Clark Development Corporation, how long have you been a building official?
Well, I was a building official for just since just last January after the retirement of the former building official Engineer Angel Pineda. So after that, I was assigned as the acting building official of CDC. Prior to that, I am also, or concurrently, I am also the OIC section head of the building permit section.
Sir, if you were to rate your job,
Mm-hmm.
one being the lowest and being the highest,
Yes.
what rating would you give it?
In terms of what? In terms of pressure, in terms of satisfaction with the job,
Let's
in
say,
terms of the salary, what? In terms of what?
let's say in terms of satisfaction.
Satisfaction. Satisfaction in terms of serving people, I would say it will be within between 8 to 9. And the frustration basically will be 1%. Because being a building official, since we CDC being being a building official, and we know the nature of the job of building official, which is service oriented. So basically the satisfaction rate's high because you know that upon when you do your job, when you completely do your job, you are serving the people.
So, sir, do you feel pressured or challenged?
Challenge in a manner that uh, each project it's peculiar, since there are no similar project, or there are no similar problems with regards now to the problems that are being encountered in the processing of the building permit. So more or less it's challenging. It's challenging at the same time pressured, since, as I've said, you have to serve the people, and considering that you're a government official or a government employee, you have to satisfy all those people.
So you said that you're serving the people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, as a
So
government. employee.
Yes. So you deal with a lot of people
Mhm.
with different personalities and
Yes.
attitudes.
Mhm.
So, how do you deal with them? How do you interact with them?
It
Are
depends. We all know the people that we deal with, with CDC, considering that there are other foreign individuals who are clients of CDC or who are locators of CDC. So more or less, it depends on the nationality. If they are going to be Caucasians or let us say, for example, Europeans, Americans, the dealings with them is just straightforward. If you there will be no gray areas with respect now to decisions. If it is a yes, it must be yes.
mm,
If it is no, it must be no. Now, unlike the Koreans, where oh, Koreans are hard-headed, so basically you have to deal with them in a manner that you don't have to, meaning you have to consider also their feelings, and you have to consider also the conditions wherein you have to balance. You have to balance everything with regards now to how we try to deal with those Koreans. Filipinos Filipinos are naturally going to be pushy with regards now to their requirements or their needs. But basically, for as long as you just try to do what is right and what is correct, then there's no problem
mm.
with dealing with other people.
Which do you find harder to deal with, sir? The Filipinos or foreign investors? I mean, clients.
Filipinos, as I've said earlier, if it is the foreigners, uh, they are basically they are law-abiding citizens. No? So if you say this is the requirement, then they just follow what's the requirement. Now, unlike the Filipinos, where if they say this is the requirement, can we do away with that requirement? Those things that more or less the nature of the Filipinos. If they can go away with it, and and they can get what they want through a shortcut, then that is the
Mm.
nature of Filipinos.
Have you experienced under the table?
There
Uh,
are there are there are there are there are what do you call that? May tukso. There are some attempts to do that, but as I've said, for as long as you just try to do your job, and then try to tell them that we are just doing our job.
mm.
We don't do any short change, or we don't do any shortcuts in the processing of the papers. Then you just try to go do away with it. Although there are some instances that some gifts which they were
Mm.
already there, so you cannot do away with them.
Mm.
Okay.
Those clients, sir, do they appreciate, in your point of view?
Yeah, yeah. They appreciate what the efforts that you exerted in their requirements, in their processing of their papers, and they just show it by just giving some gifts through, let us say, for example, pizza. They
Mm.
bring pizza and soft drinks and whatever food, but not money.
Yes.
Okay.
So far, what were the major problems that you have encountered in your job?
Ah, you see, in at CDC, a lot of people have that superiority complex that since we are the locators, we are the bosses, and we can do away with anything that what we want. Not, but I'm not saying that they are all. Some locators do the things that they want to do without even trying to get some permits with us.
Mm.
So in those cases, as based from the book, and we have no recourse but to issue them some regulations. And from there, what I noticed naman is when they were issued with notice of violations, they just comply with the requirements.
So,
So probably it's just a matter of they don't know that it is a requirement.
I see. What's the usual reaction that you get from them? They just usually comply. They don't feel shocked, confused.
No, actually, they feel shocked because probably in their place, this is not the procedure wherein before you can construct, you have to apply for a building permit. So basically, probably in their countries or in their places, that is not a requirement. So when we say that you have to apply for a building permit, they're not shocked. They're just surprised probably, and eventually they are going to comply with the requirements.
Um, do you have any statistics on how many in terms of percentage among the structures within Clark have secured the necessary building or construction
Okay.
permits?
At CDC, that is what we can be proud of. Basically, around 95 to 98% have secured the necessary permits before, or have complied with the requirements of the office of the building official before they construct their building. Although there are some instances that the requirements or the permits were later issued after the start of the construction or after the issuance of the notice of violation. But basically, they have all complied. So more or less 95 to 98%.
Sir, how do you know who have not? How do you know who among the which among the buildings here have not yet complied? Do you inspect them one by one,
Yeah.
or
Among all of the buildings which do not have the during I haven't have any idea of what of any buildings that do not have the building permit since I came here at CGC. I am not aware of any building that does not have a building permit. Basically, all the buildings that were constructed or that were erected when I first came in have all the necessary building permits. No matter how late they were given, but everything or all buildings have been given the building permits or occupancy permits. Probably those buildings which were former which were already here even during the time the Americans when Clark was still an American base. Probably those were the buildings that was not the building permit.
so? Have you had an experience wherein you were forced to issue a permit, even if the requirements have not yet been made?
Uh, there are some instances, but in those cases, we just try now to issue the building permits in a compromise manner. So we try to compromise deals wherein we are going to issue you the building permit even if you have not complied with some of the requirements, provided that you are going to issue or execute an affidavit or undertaking. With respect now to requirements regarding construction plans or building plans, there definitely we are not going to issue permits without compliance with the necessary codes. What I'm trying to say is there are other requirements which we need before we can issue the permit, like for example the requirement coming from DOLE. But for that, we can issue the permit, as I've said, for as long as you are going to execute the necessary affidavit. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if you are going to execute the affidavit, you are not going to comply with the requirement. You are still going to comply with the requirement.
Sir, what are your usual requirements before you issue permits?
The necessary construction plans, which will reflect the scope of the work that you are going to undertake, and then that is the major ones. Those are the requirements that are being indicated in the National Building Code. On the other hand, there are some internal requirements or department requirements or CFC regulated requirements such as the sublease agreement, and then also the ECC, which are required by our other departments, which can be taken from from the other agencies, government agencies.
Sir, about the land where the buildings are
Yes,
built,
yes.
are those bought by,
No,
or
they are
are,
just being leased.
those are
Leased. They
just
are
being,
more or less they are just like they are just being rented.
mm,
Uh,
so one cannot buy
everything
land from,
everything that will be that you see inside the clerk is a property
mm,
of the clerk Freehold Zone.
why can't they be,
No, because basically, again, as I've said, this is an area being owned by the government.
okay,
Okay,
so, okay, so let's go back to your being a building official.
okay.
What do you think are the other qualifications or requirements for being a building official aside from being a civil engineer or an architect?
The primers the the prime requirement for a building official is it must be he must be a civil engineer or an architect. Because actually there is only one building official in the Philippines, and that is the secretary of the Department of Public Highways and Parks. But you have to imagine that how can he be a building official to all the towns and cities that are that here in the Philippines. So there is actually now a designated building official for each town and for each city. Okay. So since you are working under the DPWH and being the secretary, so basically probably that is the reason why you have to be a civil engineer or an architect. Other than that, it's the same. It's the same requirement as an ordinary employee, be it a private or a public. You must be perhaps basically a what a Filipino, or with respect now or qualifying with respect now to what's the required age and so on and so forth. Must be competent. Must be morally upright. More or less, those are the same qualities, qualification.
Sir, if you aren't a building official
Yeah.
now, what is there any other job that you would rather be?
A lot. Civil engineer, you can have a lot of job as a civil engineer. You can be a contractor, you can be a designer, everything. You know? So actually, being a building official is not a particular job of a civil engineer. It is just the pudding in the cake, being a civil engineer and uh, being the head of a unit. Just like it is just an add-on. Just like for me, I am the section head of the building permit section, and being the building official or the function of the building official is an add-on. Just an add-on.
So this is my last question,
Okay.
sir. If you were a building or an
Okay.
architectural structure,
Okay.
let's say for example a house, a
Okay.
mall, condominium, or even a tower or a bridge,
Mhm.
what building or architectural structure would you be and why? Mm.
What type of a building?
Yeah.
Probably I will be in a building which will be utmost service to other people. Probably an hospital wherein it will cater to those sick people. It can be a school building which will cater to the needs of the students. Uh, but for as long as it's a building which is of service to a lot of people in terms of their needs. Although even a house, a simple house, also serve the needs of people in terms of their shelter, but in terms of the degree of the needs,
Yes.
basically it may be a hospital or even a school institution, a school building.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you